Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because folks, life's too short to be miserable. Hi, Inspiring Possible listeners. Welcome back. Thank you so much for, pushing the play button and listening to these episodes every week. And hopefully you are getting some incredible value just to think about ways to reconsider what might be possible for you in your life, and not just the impact that it can make on yourself, but how it can make an impact on others. And that's why I am very excited to have a special guest here today that maybe can give you some hope, some encouragement, also raise awareness to an issue you may not know about that is actually probably happening just a few doors down from you. But also to give you a viewpoint of how do you have maybe an idea, or you see a need, or you see a problem, and you have a passion to find a way to fill that need for those who might not have what you have. And how do you do that? And so if you are interested and you have some kind of very mission driven heart thing, something on your heart that you just feel like you want to step out in, then stay tuned, because this may be the episode for you. So our special guest today is Luke Mickelson. And Luke has a very interesting story that I'm not going to tell for him. He's going to share. But he saw a need in 2012 that for children that maybe did not have availability to beds. And this is something that, Luke, just to be honest, I recently got a new mattress not too long ago. And I think about how well I sleep on that mattress, because the previous mattress that I had was a hand-me-down mattress, from some family member. But we often don't think about if it's something that we've never had to worry about, if it's something that's been provided for us or that we've had throughout our life, about the fact that there are people around that are, and a lot of children that are not having a place to rest their head sometimes at night. Sometimes it's maybe not the most comfortable areas that they sleep. And so I can't wait for you to tell the story about how Sleep in Heavenly Peace came about and the incredible work that you are doing today. So welcome to the team, or welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. And the team. Yeah, I'm a team player. No,
So
thank you. That was
all come
great.
about.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm an honor to be here, and share a little bit of my life and journey down this road of child bedlessness. And hopefully, at the end of this, I always tell listeners, look, I hope you get out what you hear, and you just like you get out what you put in. And I tell everybody I'm a farm kid from Idaho, right? I'm nobody special, but what I did learn along the way of this journey, it was something incredible and something that I loved sharing with people, especially those people that have a heart for wanting to give back and are looking, like I was, are looking for just that thing in life that makes a difference, right? That fills these holes that sometimes we have in our hearts, and these compelling drives that come from somewhere, in the cosmos that want us to make and do things better and make things better. So I hope that my story can provide some inspiration for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it is going to, because I remember just when, sometimes for the listeners, the way that sometimes we get these guests on our show, I don't know if I've ever pulled back the curtain, is people will email us, or they have individuals that help them spread their mission-driven message, right? And need platforms to get their, kind of awareness about what's going on and the incredible work that they're doing. And I'll never forget when sometimes my executive assistant, she'll go through some of these and she'll send them to me. And I remember when I just hit your story and I dived in a little bit to it, I'm like, this is incredible. I can't wait to have a conversation with this guy. So I'm really curious to see how this all played out and how you took the leap into making this a possibility, and then kind of where is it at today?
Yeah, of course. Again, like I said, I'm a small kid from Idaho, small town in Idaho. about 2012, number one, growing up in a small town, you know everybody, right? I mean,
That's
it's
right. I'm from a small town, Luke, in the middle of Louisiana. It's called Ball, Louisiana. You probably have never heard of it, but
no.
it's small town, okay?
It's I'm right. Mine, Kimberly, right in the middle of in the central Idaho
Okay.
or south central Idaho, and the beauty, and you would relate to this. The beauty about living in such a small town, small community, you get to know everybody, right? I mean, there's pros and cons to that, but
That's right. I was about to say there's pros to that because there is often community support, right? Because
oh
you can call
yeah,
somebody up and they're gonna come help you. The con is they may know too much about your business and they've
yeah,
spread it
yeah.
around, but that's okay.
But but you're right. The cons or the pros outweigh the cons. We you get to
Yeah.
know your everybody. I knew everybody in my school, right? Granted, I graduated with 69 people, but I knew everybody in my school. If you could pick up a ball and throw it generally accurately in any direction, you played sports and I was really grateful for that because all that taught me was the joy of working with other people, a team player. I was raised by a single mom, so all my coaches were my dads, right? So I gotta pick and choose some of the great things that I learned from these iconic individuals in my life, and growing in a small town, you get to know everybody, and so you have this really community feel, and I didn't know that this was going to play such a big part in my career. I started out playing sports, and of course, I wanted to be a football player growing up, like every little kid. Then you get out there and you're like, I got to go in sports medicine, so I'm going to do sports medicine and
Okay.
physical therapy, and then I served a mission for my church and came back and I realized, I love talking to people and I love working with their frustrations and helping deal with problems. So I entered a service sales position and I really landed in a spot I loved, just going and knocking on doors and meeting new companies and finding out what they do and helping them solve problems. I just really enjoyed that. And that a lot of that came from my mom. She's my hero. She raised 5 kids on her own. She taught me the joy of service. And trust me, when you've got five, I had 3 older sisters, so I was the best dressed kid
Oh,
in
God
town.
bless.
And so and I enjoyed that side of things.
So you had a lot of female, like not only the
Oh,
male from the mentors in your life, but then
oh,
you had your sisters who I'm guessing you weren't the baby. Were you the baby or not the
I
baby?
was the second to the youngest. I had
Okay.
a younger sister and 2 older sisters, and then I did have an older brother. He was the oldest, so he was kinda out of the
Okay.
house by the time I was going through there, but,
But you were the youngest. You were the baby brother. You were the baby
correct.
brother.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Yep, I was the baby brother, and it was great, there for most of my high school career, I was the only man in the house, right? So it was fun, right? I really appreciated my sisters and like I said, I was the best dressed kid in town because my sisters were like, "Yeah, you're not wearing that, you know that, right?"
They give you a lot of pointers along the
A
way,
lot
huh?
of pointers, that's right. But, there I learned a lot of great stuff. We were close family. We did a lot of stuff for each other. A lot of stuff was done for us, right? I remember one Christmas, back in I don't know how old are you, Christy, but some of your listeners might be old enough to remember what a Walkman was, where you
Oh,
know,
yes, I
or,
do.
and then the Discman came out, where there were CDs and
Yes.
they had the 4-second delay, so you could go on a walk and not skip all the time.
Mhm.
Maybe jog if you jogged really softly.
Yes,
Uh,
I remember
but
all these, and I'd also remember making, like, this burnt the CDs where you would, like, put all your favorite songs and
oh,
give
yeah.
somebody a special CD that you made just for them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they don't have that anymore. I remember we used to record, and we're way off topic, but that's okay. We used to
That's okay.
record, when the radio kicked on, it was your favorite song. This is before CDs. You'd hit record. Oh, yeah, you know what I'm
Or
talking
you
about.
pushed
Yeah.
on the cassette tape, you'd push what it was like a record and play or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that to get
Yep.
it going. I don't
Yep.
know. It's been a minute.
But I remember, Christmas time, I wanted one of those, and of course, my mom, she worked at the school. It's funny, my mom worked at the elementary school as a secretary to the principal when I went to elementary. Well, and I think she did this on purpose. The minute I went to high school, she switched jobs to being the superintendent's secretary, and her office was, guess what? In the high school. So,
Of course she did,
yeah, of
because
course
she
it was.
wanted to
So
keep some
there was
eyeballs on you.
no, oh my, 2 eyeballs. I had no way I was ditching school, but I remember one Christmas, we had a great neighborhood, we had great friends. I walked out in the mailbox, there was $1,500 in the mailbox for our family for Christmas. That was just kind of the environment we lived in, and I never forgot that because I wanted to be that person that helped people, like people helped me and my family, and so going through life, and having these lessons that I've learned, It was 2012. Now, if I can bring your listeners into where I was at, I had a full-time job, been working at this job for almost 20 years, married, 3 kids. In my church, I was what was called a young men's president, which means I was basically over the spiritual growth as well as the activity arm of the church for the young men's program, ages 12 to about 18. And the activity program was basically Boy Scouts. So I was the leader of the Boy Scouts, if you will.
Okay.
Um, and I remember at the time, like, and I don't know if everybody goes through kind of a midlife crisis. Mine was more centered around my faith as well as who I am. What do I really want out of this life? And I was just shared this on a podcast earlier about how, your measurement for success for me in my mid 30s, well, growing up and through my mid 30s was always, hey, how much money are you making? Right. It just seems like that was what everybody cared about. And so naturally, I guess that's what I wanted to be successful. I'm an athlete. I'm competitive. And if I can make more zeros behind my paycheck, then great. I'm successful, whatever that is. Right. Well, when I hit my
Mhm.
mid 30s, none of that really mattered to me anymore. Right. I got more mature and I realized what I really wanted. And it wasn't that. And so now this level of this measure of success that I so dearly fought for really didn't mean anything. So now I'm kind of empty. And so going through this period of
Like searching for meaning. Like, what do I want this
yeah,
this phase of my life to mean, and how do I can find meaning in what
and
I'm doing?
purpose, meaning, where do I fit in the world? How can I make a difference? Absolutely. So you're kind of I was going through this hole that I was in, but I was also being this young men's president. I was able to work with the boys, coach them. We were doing activities. It was a lot of fun, and it was really fulfilling. Well, when I was sitting in a meeting one time with the leaders of the church, they talked about this a bunch of families they were helping, but one family in particular, they talked about all the things they were doing for me. To brought in food and rides to work and school, and that the kids didn't have any beds, and they were bringing them toys. And I said, wait a minute. Did you say the kids didn't have any beds? Like, they literally don't have any beds? They're like, yeah, no, they're just sleeping on the floor. And I thought, okay, number one, that's terrible. I thought about my own kids and how they would be sleeping on the floor, and, the conditions and how they wake up. And I mean, all the things are going through my head. And the other thing came to my mind. I'm like, here's a great opportunity to take these teenagers, these scouts, get an Xbox controller out of their hands, and let's put a drill in them and sander. Let's teach them something to do, and teach it the value of service and helping someone else out. And so I was like, you know what? Don't worry about beds. Me and the Boy Scouts will take care of that. It was super fun. They came over to my house that week, and for a couple hours, each night we constructed. I had a bunk bed at home, and I just patterned it after that bunk bed, and we constructed this bunk bed for this family. And what I saw out of these teenage kids wasn't discontent that they weren't watching the screen. It was joy. Like, and I think it's because I'd like to think it's because they knew it was going to a child, that didn't have a
Mhm.
bed, and they just had a great time. Well, when the delivery came about, I didn't go. I had to stay back and clean my garage because it was just a mess, if you can
Yeah,
imagine.
I can imagine a bunch of teenage boys over there, trying to learn
Oh,
these carpentry skills that they may or may not have. They
yeah.
may be embarking on this for the first time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And so so they took their parents, they took the other scout leaders, and the next day at church, they told me about the experience, and I was super jealous. I mean, here I did a lot of the work, and I didn't
Yeah.
get a lot of the reward, but it was a great experience. Well, about a week later, I'm sitting on the couch, and this good feeling that I got from this experience, this started feeling this emptiness in my heart was now going away. Right, it was draining again. It was just before Christmas, a couple weeks before Christmas, and then I was sitting there watching TV with my kids, and all of a sudden, an Xbox game, the new Xbox advertisement came on the TV. For all those parents, they know what I'm talking about. When you look at your kids and you can just read their mind, and I'm like sitting there, I'm like, don't
Don't
you ask
ask.
for that? You better not ask for that, because they know I'm not going to get it for them. And sure enough, right, they did, and it was just, I was grateful for that, because it was the fire, it was the spark of frustration that fueled my desire to get my butt off the couch. Because I remember thinking, I can tell my kids about the experience I just had. I can tell them how it changed the lives of these kids and lives of the volunteers, these scouts that help. Or you know what? I can just get my butt off the couch, get out in the garage, and we'll build another bed with them, with my kids. And so
Yeah.
that's what we did. I grabbed they were 10 and 6 at the time. And of course I had a little 1-year-old, and dude, Christy, we had the best time. My daughter's in her tutu drilling screws together. My son's hammering away. I mean, we just had a great family experience. But then the problem came of, well, what do I do with this bed? I don't know anybody that has children sleeping on the floor. And so, it was recommended to me, just throw it on like one of these buy, sell, trade Facebook groups, right? Let's see if we can find someone. And I was really hesitant doing that. I'd spent very little time on social media. And I kind of worried about saying a free bed on social media. I'm going to get nothing but, every Tom, Dick, and Harry's going to want something. And even though I got a little bit of that, what I was really surprised, two things surprised me is I heard many stories about the conditions that some of these kids in my own little town were sleeping in. And
That you wouldn't imagine just a few doors down that
no
somebody
idea.
is having this experience.
No, and again, I'm from a very small town. The first family with the scouts that we delivered bed to, they lived in an apartment I didn't even know existed. That's how remote this was. We wanted to build more beds, right? Because of all of the need that was exposed to us in this Facebook post, as well as all the people that wanted to help. I mean, I had classmates from 20 years ago I had talked to for 20 years calling me up and say, "Hey, Luke, how can I help?" And I remember thinking, man, maybe we're onto something here. And finally, I had a friend of mine. She called me up and she says, "Luke, I have the perfect family, and this is my Haley story." So if you can imagine, when I first met Haley, this is a 6-year-old little girl with her mom that has never slept on a bed. She slept in the back seat of her mom's car. They were homeless. Well, my friend called me. She was working with them and got them, some government assisted housing. They got them a house. So when I first met Haley, I walked into her house and she was so excited, but there was nothing in the house. There was a hot plate sitting on a milk carton, right? And it had a can of soup on it. And that was it. That was the only thing in the house. And I remember, the mom knew why we were there, but little Haley didn't. And she led us back into her room. I said, "Hey, come show me where your room's at," right? So she walks us back in the room. And if you can picture what this looks like, it's an old rundown government assisted house. There's, holes in the carpet and tears in the wallpaper and no doors on the closet, which was filled with all these secondhand Barbies and toys and stuff. But what got me the most, Christy, is in the corner of this room was a pile of clothes, a nest. And that's where Haley slept. She'd come home from school. She takes her clothes off, puts her pajamas on, sleeps on her school clothes, and then in the morning reverses the system and goes to school. I mean, it floored me. I'd never seen that. I'd seen poverty before. I'd seen homelessness before, but I've never seen it through the eyes of a 6-year-old, of a child. And so we were super excited to bring in this bed. And as we brought in pieces of the bed and started assembling this bunk bed, you could see Haley, once she realized what it was, she just exploded, like just come and hugged us, hugged the bed, kissed the bed. I'd never seen that before, right? Little 6-year-old
Yeah.
kissing the bed. And if that wasn't enough to just tear your heart apart, I looked over, and again, I'm raised by a single mom. To see this single mom in 6 years of tears just pouring down her face, just knowing what she has been through, trying to provide for her daughter. I realized right then and there, Christy, this was far more than just a bed. It's far more than a good night's sleep for her daughter. This was a good night's sleep for her as well.